everybody, it's Ben and Rob from Edge of Wonder on Rise.tv. In a rare event, Hurricane Hilary hit the West Coast, leaving parts of the desert covered in water. Although it was weaker than what was originally thought, some areas of California got more rain in 2 days than what they normally see in the whole year.
Yeah, and then on the same day, an earthquake hit LA and created the term hurriquake.
Great name.
Now another tropical storm, Harold, has hit Texas, and now with the Maui fires and a weird pattern of strange weather all over the world, is this really just a result of climate change or something else?
Could weather manipulation like HAARP technology be a part of disasters? How is China working on its own weather modification program? And what would be the motivation behind controlling the weather anyway?
Yeah, and other weird news, we found what might be the most substantial Bigfoot evidence we've seen yet. So join us on this Edge of Wonder Live as we go deeper into the weird weather the world is experiencing, plus a Rise TV exclusive Q&A and meditation/prayer. So we'll see you guys out
on the edge.
And if you're listening to our Edge of Wonder podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and review either on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else. Also, please remember to like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Ganjing World, Twitter, Facebook, wherever
the heck you are.
How are you doing, Rob?
I'm good. I'm psyched to see the most substantial Bigfoot evidence of all time.
Well, yeah, you haven't seen it yet, actually.
I don't think I've seen this yet, actually.
No. So, well, before we go into you were telling me about this Black Mirror episode that you were watching.
Oh, right? Yeah. So, Ben, we're kind of starting like a podcast experiment. I'm starting a tech podcast with one of my buddies, and it's called Hype XR. And so we're preparing to do an episode. We have about 12 episodes shot already, and we're going to release them soon. But we were preparing for an episode on AI sort of relationship bots, like how AI is infiltrating the relationship platforms, I guess you could say. And I found that there is a Black Mirror episode it's in season 4, and it's called Hang the DJ. And it's really, really interesting. It's basically like the premise is that your phone or a device is dictating who you meet and date, and it gives you it gives you a time expiration for your relationship with a certain person. So even if you like this person, it's like 36 hours or 2 months or 5 years or whatever it is, right? And so the episode isn't nearly as dark as other Black Mirror episodes. It like actually ends in actually a really positive way, kind of as positive as Black Mirror could be, but it is like this entire interesting idea of kind of being in a simulation with this whole thing and AI running your relationships in your life, which is like on the horizon. I mean,
seems to be.
Yeah.
So
it really,
I mean, there's already like prompts that, you can ask it, right, to give you advice on how to respond to something or anything.
Right.
It's kind of weird in itself.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that the co-host, my buddy Nick, he's like, Rob, I was like, yeah. He goes, I'm creating an AI with your voice, and it's going to sing to us on the show tomorrow. And I was like, dude, if you were anyone else, I would sue you. Like using my likeness, but for the show, it's like, whatever,
I think a fan did that with us. It wasn't like a super high tech one, but it was using AI. I don't think we were singing, but someone sent it to us. Anyway, it's so weird to see yourself as this like AI thing. Like I don't even know how to describe the weirdness of it. Like I can't imagine what Elon is kind of thinking, seeing himself I mean, so many people are making Elon and these AI bot things. Like that must be so weird.
Yeah, and And you know, one of the things that occurred to me in one of our shows recently was that, hey, if you're a really busy person, you can create an AI avatar of yourself and have it go on a date with the person, and you could screen the person before, like whether it was a match or not, using the AI to not waste your own time.
That's weird.
That's super weird, right? I would never do that. Like that's like, but I think this is what they're looking at. Like they're actually thinking about doing things like this out there right now.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, it's unnerving.
Kevin is saying in our chat, there's an AI where you can talk to Jesus and Satan.
You can talk to it as Jesus.
As Jesus or
too, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Satan or Jesus. That's weird.
Yeah. See, this is what I mean. This is where humans get involved and it just becomes eerie and strange and not normal. You know, well, speaking of like shows, I was rewatching the season 3 of Daredevil now it's on Disney, you know, originally it was on Netflix.
This season had the Kingpin in it or not?
Yeah. That's the one where Kingpin actually becomes Kingpin.
Got it. Okay.
It's honestly, it's probably the best written show in the Marvel universe that I've ever seen, and it's probably because Disney didn't touch it.
Yeah, so, it was Netflix was doing. They had the rights for these.
Yeah, Netflix got the rights for it, and they did their own thing with it outside of Disney. And it's the season 3 is just so incredibly well written. But one of the main themes through season 3 is his struggle with his faith in God.
Yeah.
And because it's like he's going through everything that he's going through, and then he's like this, you know, being blind as a kid, and then coming into his life, and then everything a lot of things get revealed about his life in season 3. And so he kind of like turns away from God because it's like he has a hard time believing at that point. I mean,
Sure.
At the end of it, he comes back, you know, it's like full circle coming back to everything. And like, okay, you know, now he's starting to understand, but I don't know who wrote this, but there's a part in the movie that really, or the show that really like, got me thinking in a lot of ways, especially what's going on in our world right now, because it's so hard to see what's going on. And what he said, he said, God is creating this most amazing tapestry ever. But the problem is only God is seeing what he's creating. We're all behind it and just seeing this like torn up, you know, piece of cloth that's hanging there with all the tassels and everything else on it. And we're just seeing kind of like the paint, whatever, and it just looks really bad. And so it's, in other words, it's like, because that's all we're seeing, it's so hard for us to, it's like, we have to have the faith that whatever God is creating will be the most beautiful thing ever, even though we can't see it.
Right.
And it's like walking that path where you just have this divine faith, or blind faith, I should say, in some aspects, you know. And it just made me really think, and it's just like, wow, you know, the element of God is out of so many shows and movies. It's just like they're so afraid to talk about these things in movies today. And that's why I was like, wow, this is a really powerful, like, it's such a powerful statement. It's pretty violent, you know, the Daredevil shows in general, but it's definitely worth watching. And it's so incredibly detailed, the storyline, script, and each person. So anyway, it just made me really think about a lot of things and just how cool that statement really is.
Actually, while we're on the topic, I went to see that movie Demeter this past weekend in the theaters. It's you know what that is?
No, actually, I don't.
It's actually pretty good. It's a movie about like Dracula, basically. You know the story where this ship, the Demeter, is sailing over from I guess it is to Britain from somewhere. Okay. And they get the cargo, and the cargo is these like big crates, right? And they bring it on, and you know, all of a sudden the people start disappearing one at a time, like the crew. And so now it's like the entire crew versus Dracula. and it's pretty wild. It's actually pretty good. There's a few minor plot holes, but overall it was like a really pretty good movie. Like it had the feels of the old kind of Dracula, and this is kind of a part of the larger Bram Stoker's, Dracula.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was like he runs out of bodies to consume in Transylvania and wants to go to London to just like have at it. Yeah. So it's pretty good. Not nearly as good as the original Bram Stoker's Dracula with what's his name? Gary Oldman.
Oh, Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves, yeah.
Yeah, and Keanu, yeah. But it's good.
And somebody else is in there too, right? I can't remember. Anyway. All right.
Lindsay says Rob always finds the plot holes. That's my job. Plot holes, yeah. Anyway,
sometimes when they stand out in a movie, it just ruins a movie.
It ruins it. It does. It's like you had me up until this point. This is why Christopher Nolan movies are like, they're usually so good that if there's one plot hole, it just ruins the whole thing for me. Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Why don't we get into some topics of the show here? Bigfoot, or skunk ape, I guess you could say. So in Florida, it's called skunk ape. And I guess they're a little bit smaller than
stanky is all.
And that's what people are saying.
Yeah.
So here's a video. I guess, okay, so some of these things are always a little bit older. I guess this is from a few years ago. However, New York Post just had an article about it the other day, talking about it, and it just kind of resurfaced again, and the thing is I think it's good. You kind of forget about things, and when all these topics are in the news, especially like talking about UFOs, aliens, like all these things, I think more people are now searching for this stuff, and more people that weren't into it previously are now getting into this stuff. So it's a pretty compelling video, I have to say. So let me see what you think of this. So Lindsay, you can play this.
Oh, it's so quiet where he is.
Yeah,
here's the crickets.
I'm not 100%.
I'm seeing movement over there.
Where this is? Let me see if I can find out where this is. Yeah, it's straight ahead.
I see it. Yeah,
you can see it. And he's like breaking tree branches.
Wow, that looks more like a actual ape thing than it did a Bigfoot. Like you could see his arm grabbing up to pull something down there, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I guess because the skunk apes are a bit smaller, most people think they've seen a gorilla or a monkey.
Right.
There are no gorillas or monkeys in Florida, so at least not like wild ones.
Right.
Maybe if someone had one as a pet and released it.
Or SeaWorld let all the gorillas go because there's so many at SeaWorld. Just kidding.
All right.
Where did this happen?
This is in Mississippi.
Oh, this is in Mississippi. Interesting.
Yeah. It was recorded by a guy named Josh Highcliffe.
Yeah, you can see that moving around there pretty well. Can you zoom way in on that for us, Lindsay? Is that even possible?
Can you zoom in with your on the screen?
Let me see.
You'd have to pinch. Yeah, there you go. What's going on over there? You can see him. He's crouching down there. I thought that was his arm.
It stands up in a minute.
Yeah, that looks like
and he's something. He says he's not speaking because he's actually really afraid. He just doesn't want to startle it. It's like it doesn't see him. And then when it stood up, he just took off running.
He booked it. Yeah. Dude, he took off, man.
So my first thought too is, well, it kind of looks like a bear, but then it stands up. And that's when it fully stands up. Granted, bears can kind of do that too. They do, especially if they're against a tree, they can stand up. So, it could be a bear, but according to him, it wasn't a bear.
Wait, but
And
they're not really bears in Mississippi. Well, I don't think so.
not that big.
Yeah.
You know, even in upstate New York, you have black bears, but they're
Those are
like the
small,
size
though.
of a dog. You
Yeah,
know?
they're like small.
Yeah, you don't have like grizzly bears or anything up there. So, yeah, so and besides, grizzly bears are usually brown, right, in nature. So yeah, they can't. I mean, it could be a bear. It really could be a bear. I'm not trying
Yeah,
to
but
say
look at when he
it's
stands
not,
up. And
but
Lindsay, can you pause it as soon as he stands up?
yeah,
Because you can see that that is not a bear when that thing stands up right before he starts sprinting.
maybe it's a man inside a bear costume pretending to be
Like right,
Bigfoot.
ready, here it comes.
There are black bears in Mississippi, I'm seeing.
Yeah, I know. I said that there's probably black bears, but not grizzly bears. But black bears are not very big. This thing looks like a cross.
Yeah, but
between a
and
bear
it
and a
looks like
monkey.
it looks more like his arm. He's using his arms how a human would
Yeah,
use
how a
his
human
arms.
would. Yes.
Less like a monkey or an ape.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't look like a bear. It's up. It's more upright than like how a bear.
Right there.
Yes,
Yeah,
right
that's
there. How he
not a
bends
bear.
down. Yeah.
Nothing about that is a
Yeah,
bear.
so it's definitely not a bear. So it's either someone in a costume or it actually is Bigfoot. And I'm not going to rule out completely that there were some videos that I have seen where I am convinced that they were a costume, so I didn't show those.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah. And then it's like whenever you add sound effects to it in a video, I'm like, come on, like, why are you adding sound effects? And it makes it even more fake. But anyway, there's the sun bear from the Chinese thing, it was so funny.
That thing's so weird looking. Yeah, maybe it was one of those Chinese sun bears in there standing up like that.
So and then there is a difference between the skunk ape and Bigfoot. Skunk apes, I guess, are a little less hairier than Bigfoot and are a little bit smaller. So
they're less hairy?
I guess less hairier than like Bigfoot supposedly are. But they have been, and skunk apes have been known to climb trees. And
yeah, people will often see them in trees, just like chilling in the trees, right?
Yeah, which is why in Florida there's so many reports of seeing actual reports of people think they've seen monkeys and apes, but again, there's no monkeys or apes in Florida, so it's not a normal ape, especially a giant like 6-foot ape. It's like, yeah, I don't think they're just running around in Florida. It's probably some kind of weird cryptid thing if that's the case. So yeah, so anyway, that leads to the skunk ape thing. So anyway, I thought it was a pretty cool video.
Definitely. Good
and
find.
And then actually there was these giant triangles. It looks really like the TR-3B that were flying around over near a military Marines Corps Air Ground Combat Center in 29 Palms. And this happened in 2021. But again, like these things are all making the rounds again because all this stuff about Bigfoot and everything. So this is one of the ones where Corbell was kind of talking about. Yeah, that's right. He I think he made his documentary on this. I mean, it's still very
You know what though, Ben?
Yeah.
I was outside a couple of weeks ago and I saw something almost exactly like that. And it was going through the sky like this, and they were about 5 of them in a line exactly like this, and then they just disappeared. And I found out that it was
Starlink.
And everyone was freaking out where I was. They were like, "Did you see the UFOs?" And I was like, "That's Starlink."
Are you sure it's Starlink though?
Yeah.
It's like they're being Starlink is whatever you see, it's just Starlink. It's Starlink, and that's why I'm like, it's funny because now I'm kind of on the other extreme where it's
but I think I do think like there's I'm with you on what you're saying. Like at first I was like, oh, those are UFOs, and then I was like, but it was so there was something about it that was like way too obvious for it to just be UFO, where I was like, okay, let me look into this a little bit. And then I was like, people are seeing this exact thing, these 5 in a row lined up. And it's like, it is supposed to be Starlink. Whether it is or not is another thing.
Actually, okay, so this one, they brought in the resolution. Lindsay, can you scroll down in the article a little bit more? Past those photos, that one right there. So that one, you can actually see the outline of a triangle.
I don't know what that is.
Because when you zoom in on it and you brighten up the photo, the image, you can see an outline of like a triangle. So that's what's kind of like I said, it's a little bit more compelling.
R3B.
Yeah. And especially if it's over a military place.
Yeah, like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or something.
Yeah. So again, this was, where did I say it was? Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, 29 Palms. I'm not sure where that is. Maybe in somewhere in Nevada. Oh, California. It was over California. That's a California military base. So. All right. Well, you guys, we got to play a trailer. We get back, we'll start talking about some weird weather stuff.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to Edge of Wonder. What if I told you that not only have we been visited by extraterrestrials, but that our own military has in their possession crafts along with alien bodies hidden from the public?
Military, high-level brass Pentagon witnesses, it pulls a lot of weight. Those would be the number one priority witnesses because they got closer to the truth than anyone else. They actually dealt with the physical hardware.
Well, join me on this fantastic Edge of Wonder episode with my special guest, Michael Schratt, who is a private pilot and aviation historian. He has been investigating UFO encounters for over 20 years and has meticulously reviewed over 50,000 cases. He has also been featured in numerous documentaries such as Above Top Secret, along with the Ancient Aliens TV show. In this episode, Michael will not only expose the UFO retrieval program, but will provide detailed evidence and first-hand testimonials that the military-industrial complex has been hiding alien craft, bodies, and technology from the public for nearly 100 years. All right, without further ado, let's bring on Michael Schratt. All right.
Yeah, you guys, that Michael Schratt 2-part interview that Ben did on Rise TV is killer. So definitely go check that out. Very, very good interviews. And what's cool about it is if you're following what's going on with David Grush and Eric Hecker out there right now, like the background evidence that Michael Schratt gives will really, really, really help you understand the entire history of everything coming up to today. So very cool. Definitely check it out. There's David Grush right there.
Yep.
Surprisingly not as bad of a derp photo there as some of the other ones that I've been seeing recently.
All right. So should we talk about all the weird weather stuff and weather manipulation and everything else? I mean, okay. So as we all know, the California Hurricane Hilary made landfall. It didn't do as much damage as everyone was preparing for. I heard that a lot of the stores were empty in LA. People just, what's weird is not really the fact, it's good that not a whole lot of damage happened. There was a lot of water. Like the Dodgers Stadium was flooded, and there's all these photos of the Dodgers Stadium just like covered in water. So It did dump a ton of water. Luckily, the winds weren't as strong though. But it's funny because I hear stories in California of people driving out there in the rain. Like if it's raining really hard, it'd be like Texans driving in snow. They can't handle it. It's like they don't know how to. Some of them don't know how to drive in the rain because they're just not used to it. So it's the same thing with like shopping. I guess people went shopping and they couldn't find anything. All the shelves were empty and everything else because everyone was panicking. And then of course the earthquake hit in the middle of the night. So
Hurricane.
so I think this is in itself is just weird. I mean, there's all these photos and images of everything that we have here, but yeah, and then of course this brings, and then like now we have this tropical storm that's hitting Texas. There's a bunch of stuff going on in Italy, I think too. Oh no, I'm sorry, I think it was Greece. There's like some I think
they don't really have hurricanes there, though.
No, but it was like I think more fires happen in Greece.
Okay, yeah.
And then like NASA's coming out saying that this month has been the hottest year in human history, but it's like, how far back do we have data? Really?
It's not though. I think, yeah, it's not.
It's like, okay, what, like 60 years? Like, that maybe that's about it. Like, how accurate is that?
Who paid the guy at NASA to say that is what I want to know.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I would like to know too. So, so I was like really looking into HAARP, of course, and kind of looking more deeper into these things and really what's kind of going on. And okay, so Rob, yeah, you want to tell us what HAARP stands for? High frequency,
yes,
active.
It's hard for everyone. It stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. High frequency. That's the frequency they're pumping and the watts, and they're pumping into the ionosphere. High frequency active auroral research program. Auroral refers to the layer of the atmosphere that they're kind of experimenting with, or that they claim to be experimenting with. And now, it's spread out in a grid like this. Okay, now the difference between HAARP and what Eric Hecker was describing with the ice cube base down in Antarctica is that HAARP's antenna are spread over the surface of the land that they have there, right? So all the frequency is beaming up through those. The difference there is that with Eric Hecker, his ice cube base is that they've got these things called DOMs, and those are deep down in the ice that they've put down in the ice. So those things are down, but it's still got actually more power than HAARP. According to Eric Hecker, the ice cube base actually is the most potent, or I guess I don't know exactly how he put it, but it was like it can expel the most wattage or energy out into, or volts into the ionosphere from there.
Right.
Energy weapon, actually.
Yeah, and their official headquarters is in Alaska.
Yeah, HAARP's official is in Alaska, and you know why that is, right?
I mean, I'm assuming just because it's more in the middle of nowhere, and they can do things without, or it has something to do with like being closer to the North Pole.
Well, actually, so what they say is that area of Alaska is closer to the ionosphere where they want to do these experiments than anywhere else. So it's actually easier for them to do that. Now, this is what they're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Which does make sense.
It does. But it is a convenient place to do it as well.
It is. Well, and also like I said, away from public scrutiny, you can kind of do things in the down low without really causing too much attention to yourselves,
I have a little bit more data on it if you want me. Do you want me to just kind of go through? Okay, so like a few things, which is I think it was 1999 or 2000, one of those, HAARP actually like finally became active. And leading up to that, it might even been right after that. I don't know the exact date, but leading up to that, there were plans for how HAARP would develop over like a 10-year period, for instance, right? And at the very beginning, the antenna together, like one antenna could produce a certain amount of power. And the plan was that by the end of the 10 years that these antenna would be able to like tenfold the amount that they were pumping into the ionosphere. Now, what's weird is everyone's like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, the kilowatts. So it's like at the beginning, it could do like something like 1,000 or something. And then by the end, it was like exponentially more that it would be able to pump in there. Okay, my data is a little bit off here, mind you. Okay, like I have done other shows on this, but I can't remember all of it. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, what's really interesting to me is that you're talking about kilowatts of energy being pumped into the ionosphere, right? Which is heat, essentially. Right. It's heat. It's energy. Yeah. Okay, so
like one of the major things they work with, they said, is plasma as well.
Okay, right. But the main thing is like, if we're talking about you're pumping heat up into the ionosphere, well, what creates weather? What creates weather is a cold front hitting a hot front, and then you get a warm front, and then you get a hurricane, right? So it's like, is it really that big of a stretch to understand that if you're pumping kilowatts into the ionosphere, that it could potentially manipulate weather? Like, it could absolutely, like objectively speaking, if we're talking about cold fronts and hot, like warm fronts, yes, it could manipulate weather. And if you got good at it, of course you would be able to do things. And now another thing that's interesting is, you know, all of the deep underground bases that everyone talks about, DUMBs, apparently each of the DUMBs are supposed to also have some of these like DOMs in them as well. I
would 100%.
Right. Yeah. And so what happens is, because HAARP covers a certain amount of like space of the ionosphere, if you connect it with all of the other DOMs, you're apparently supposed to have like coverage over the entire planet. And this is why there are DOMs in certain DUMBs in certain places across the United States and elsewhere, is because it's like, it's basically optimizing the coverage. The HAARP was not it's not for one thing. It's not just like, oh, weather manipulation. Like, HAARP could be used to basically knock missiles out of the sky. Like if the energy is too high in the ionosphere, it would literally incapacitate any missiles that were coming in. It could also search for things in the ground by shooting high frequency waves into the ionosphere. Low frequency waves would get put down into the ground, and then they could search for things like gold. They could search for hollow areas of the earth. They could search for oil. They could search for a lot of different things. So HAARP can actually do many, many things that they're not telling us it could do, or that they are telling us like it is public, but you'd have to dig around to actually find that stuff.
Yeah. And then it's so weird, because then they're saying things are like quote unquote conspiracy, yet China, this is exactly what China is doing. I mean, they're open about it. But actually, Lindsay, can you play this clip? This is just play this.
Okay.
I mean, lasers, really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far, it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Cloud seeding, well, right there.
This fascinates me because too. I remember reading the stories that China.
You can keep playing.
Yeah, you know what's interesting too is, as HAARP was getting closer to being released in 1999, what some of these physicists and scientists were concerned about is that if you're blasting all of that wattage into the ionosphere, the wattage is staying up there somewhere, and it has to come down at some point. And what they were worried about is that it would cause like the mother of all lightning bolts to just like come down and like evaporate an entire, or like just like hit an entire area of the world, where it's like, you know, if you got good at it, you could direct where a gigantic lightning bolt would come down and cause massive havoc.
Yeah. And then, like you said, if you're blasting all this energy up into the sky, it has to go someplace. It's not just going to like, oh, whatever, dissipate or whatever. I mean, that energy is going to build up and do something. You can keep playing it, Lindsay. I think they talk about China here in a minute.
That the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to,
right? Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather, but nothing conclusive. This time we're digging in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have?
Dude, she's so uncomfortable with this conversation for some reason.
The consequences of famine.
It's hitting her.
The bad news is, if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all. Because
what's this guy's name again? Machako or Michio Kaku or I like my name better, Machako. His name's Michio Kaku. Michio Kaku.
He's been in a few documentaries and things like that.
He's on Ancient Aliens all the time.
He's on Ancient Aliens. Yeah, and he was on that What the Bleep Do We Know or something like that. I think that was him too.
He and his boy Neil Tyson deGrasse are like just go out there for these
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Whatever his name is, I don't care. Whatever. You know what I'd love to see? I would pay to get, what was his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And Mike Tyson in a room and have like a podcast together.
Oh, podcast.
So entertaining, like listening to that hour podcast.
Actually, that is possible. They might have already done that because
they should.
Mike Tyson has a podcast.
They should do that. Yeah. I'd love to hear like Mike Tyson be like, listen, Neil, what do you think about pigeons? I want to know what you think about pigeons. They didn't do nothing to nobody.
Funny. Well, there was speaking of weird weather, there were these weird clouds over San Diego the day before the hurricane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what's weird is that this is something similar I saw in Fort Myers before the weekend before the hurricane in Fort Myers too. Lindsay's going to show it here in a minute. And then we'll get into a little bit with China here.
Day before the hurricane's supposed to come, and we're getting weird clouds.
Wow, that's really weird. That's like a big chemtrail.
Yeah, it's just one long giant cloud. This is what I mean. Like, I'm thinking something with the clouds were able to maybe like guide a hurricane on a certain path. I mean, that's kind of a conclusion that I'm coming to. That's not great. Like, there's no scientific hard data to back that up, but I'm just wondering if this is something they're able to do. Now China has been bragging ever since the Olympics in China that they've been able to modify the weather. And I mean, they've actually they stand up and be like, yes, we are able to do it. China to expand weather modification. This is a CNN headline, mind you. China to expand weather modification program to cover area larger than India. So they're trying to cover 5.5 million square kilometers to modify the weather in these areas. And they are very open about it. And yet it's like, we just kind of hide from it. Like, oh no, we can't do any kind of weather modification. And then here's China saying like, and this is even from the CNN article. Sorry, hold on. Let me open this up a little bit more. It says, China has long sought to control the weather, to protect farming areas, and to ensure clear skies for key events. It seeded clouds. This is CNN. It seeded clouds ahead of the 2008 Beijing Olympics to reduce smog and avoid rain ahead of the competition. So key political meetings held in Chinese capital are notorious for enjoying beautiful, clear skies, both to weather modification and shutting down nearby factories. Can you imagine that? Like if Biden comes to town, shut down all the factories and bring out weather modification to make it all like nice and sunny.
I just think this whole thing is silly. Like, if you research a little bit about how, with the Oppenheimer movie coming out, right? You've got all these scientists together. They're like taking theoretical physics to, actual experiments in real life. And they realize as they're making the gadget, the first atomic bomb that they tested, they're realizing that, oh, this thing isn't going to go off. It's not going to work. We need, so that they figured out how to get with a bunch of explosive to get the uranium to, instead of explode, to implode and cause the atomic reaction that they needed. Right. So you're telling me that they could figure that out, but they can't figure out how to modify the weather? Like they haven't figured that out yet. Come on.
Well,
come on. Like it's not even that hard. It's not nearly as hard as creating an atomic bomb, and they've done that.
I mean, you kind of do that in school. I think like in 5th grade, you create this beaker full of, I don't know, it's like cloud thing. And it's like kind of fills up.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
it doesn't seem that hard to do it on a massive scale.
And I seriously doubt they need trillion-watt lasers to do that. Like this is why the guys like Michio Kaku, I don't trust them, because I'm like, you guys are just total fronts for the religion of science that's keeping stuff from everyone. They're working.
What does that even mean? Like how hot are we speaking? Are we talking? Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, Lindsay. Yeah, this is exactly it. It was like when I remember like in 5th grade or something, you study clouds, and it was like, oh, you can, I don't know, do something in a jar and kind of like make your own cloud or something like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem that difficult.
Hey, Ben, when you were interviewing Michael Schratt, I remember he said that there were hangars so big that they stored recovered craft in, that the hangars had their own weather.
Yeah. I mean, they do. And especially like when you're talking about air conditioning and all these things, it's like, I don't know, it just seems so easy. And actually, there's another article here from The Hill that even mentions how many many countries around the world have tried weather modification process as a means to combat climate change. But what if this is the cause of climate change? That's and it's like, how do we not know that a country like China could be using these as actually a weapon? I mean, if you think about it, it's like, well, instead of invading a country, let's just set a hurricane on it. And then it's like, if who knows what's going on? Well, then the question is, okay, if that's true, why wouldn't our own military, why wouldn't the Pentagon, why wouldn't the president announce like these things are actually happening? And I think the answer is because, I mean, it could potentially be because being blackmailed, bribed, all these like rules and regulations, like all this stuff that's happening with China, and how there's all these secret deals going on. Maybe it's like the weather balloons, right? I mean, who knows? Could this be these weather? I mean, they're actually weather balloons, like actually weather balloons. Are they creating weather?
Well, I mean, that is why they sent those up there, is like, if so these, like, let's say these weather balloons give off a certain frequency, they get into a cloud, and they can give off like a certain amount of electricity or something, you're effectively modifying the weather in that cloud potentially, right? Mm-hmm. So the weather balloons had a reason. They weren't just tracking stuff. They were experimenting up there with things. Yeah. And if this is true, then it's so possible that there is a completely separate weather system beneath the Earth if the Earth is really hollow. Like, they would have figured all of this out. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
But like, where are those, like what Michael Schratt was talking about? Like, where are those, not bunkers? What did you call them? Warehouses?
Hangars.
Hangars. Like, where are those hangars? They must
Those
be
are just in
underground.
like regular military, like Air Force bases and stuff.
Yeah, but
like
if
that.
they're that big,
They're big,
dude.
Yeah.
What are they, like 3 miles wide by 6 miles wide or
Well,
something?
I don't think they're like that. I don't think it's like that. But imagine like okay, if you think about maybe I think one of the biggest crafts that he was talking about was like a craft that was like 3 football fields long, so you build a hangar that stores something like that, or it's pretty massive.
It's big,
it really is. And then you put that somewhere, probably in Nevada or something where it's just, it's not going to bring too much attention to it. Yeah. And then it's like, of course, if you look into it, they may just have like a bunch of, like an airplane or something come out of it. And it's just like, oh, okay. It's just like they're building airplanes, but are they really? Like, who knows?
I think it'd be fairly easy for a building to have its own weather because you just need different like temperature and moisture conditions inside the building versus outside.
Sure.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be huge, but I imagine you would see more effects. I'm not sure.
It's possible. All right, we should play another trailer, and then we'll kind of get into geoengineering because this goes along with it as well.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Welcome to Edge of Wonder, where the weird gets even weirder. Out of all the craziest theories out there, none is more fascinating than the idea that giant reptilian beings, serpent people, Dracos, lizard people, or more formally, reptoids, could really exist.
Yeah, this is one creature that a lot of us have a hard time grasping. Are there really shape-shifting lizard beings controlling things behind the scenes? Or even controlling people?
Well, if you said yes to that question, then congratulations. According to an article from The Wire, you're one of the 12 million people who believe reptilians are not only real, but are even controlling politics. And if you believe that, then you're branded a paranoid, raging conspiracy theorist / lunatic who is dangerous to society.
Well, Ben, that is what the media would call you if they were secretly being controlled by reptilian aliens, right? Of course, this poll was taken back in 2013, and a lot's changed in 10 years.
Yeah, that 12 million people might have even doubled now. But whether or not you believe in the most extreme theories, the concept of strange reptoid beings ever existing is still a fascinating topic to dig into.
So is this all a giant hoax, or is there actually something to this reptilian agenda?
All right. Well, you guys can find that on Rise TV, along with our other series that we have, and amazing stuff. Rob and I really have been putting together a lot of different content over the last few years. So there's so much there.
This reptilians one is really fun though. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, like, you won't get what was put in that series anywhere else. Like, you should totally check that out. It's great. It goes through history and tracks down real sightings of the reptile man or the lizard man, whatever you want to call it, over history, and it's a blast. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, it's not so much of the shape-shifting reptilian aspect, conspiracy, more lines of what people have actually seen in real life,
right,
and how it's been reported in the media. So
honestly, is like really refreshing take on the entire thing, because it just you see it from a completely different perspective.
Mm-hmm. All right, geoengineering. So I was kind of looking into this a little bit more, because it's like, okay, what is the point? This is actually a real thing. And right now, everyone's talking about carbon dioxide removal. Like, this is like, your carbon footprint, like carbon this, carbon that. Like, we gotta, stop the use of carbon dioxide. But I kept thinking about it more and more and more. I'm like, wait a minute, don't plants breathe in carbon dioxide? So wait a minute, if we cut out all the carbon dioxide, technically it's going to like slowly kill the plants. So,
well, okay, yes, but the also the point is that the plants, the extra carbon dioxide is good for the plants to produce what? Oxygen, dude.
well, yeah, exactly. That's
it's like the
yeah.
plants literally eat the carbon dioxide and they put
Which
out
gives off
oxygen.
which
So
is
if you
what we breathe.
have an overabundance of carbon dioxide, what do? Go plant a bunch of trees, you dummy.
There you go.
Just
That's the answer.
Each one of those
right
trees has a certain amount of carbon that it will eat. So if you plant, you can literally do the math and say, I need to plant this many trees to eliminate this much carbon dioxide. And then you've literally got a completely sufficient, perfect system that was created by something a lot smarter than humans already in place.
Exactly. And which the whole process is photosynthesis, which is the process of plants using or taking carbon dioxide, the sun, nutrients, all of it, making food, and then producing oxygen in the air, which is so important for humanity. So it's like, this geoengineering is specifically designed to remove the carbon. Now there's a difference between carbon monoxide, which is what your obviously what cars give off.
Gives off. Yeah, that'll kill you.
Yeah. And then, carbon dioxide is what we breathe out. So I don't know. The more I kept thinking about this, I'm like, yeah, realistically, the solution would just be to plant more seeds, grow more plants, make like a fundamental change in how we're doing these cities. But it's scary because it's like, wow, yeah, they actually really want to do this, and they're like promoting it. And then it's like there certain phrases that they're using, like the carbon footprint phrases, and a lot of this stuff isn't even rooted in anything. It's like the fossil fuels means nothing. Like that's not even the way that fuel or oil is even produced. Like now
they're not even from fossils.
Yeah, they completely, like, even
they
Forbes
know
had
that. That's
the article.
Crazy thing.
Because it's like, whoa, yeah, it's wait a minute, and then so it's all these terminologies that they're using to get us confused, and to then like have us get on their side, I feel like. And and I started thinking about all these like San Francisco, they're having a really difficult time because there's been massive amount of shutdowns in stores. Whole Foods shut its doors in San Francisco. Walmart was making a bunch of changes.
Wait, Whole Foods shut its doors in San Francisco?
Yeah, because of they couldn't keep up with everything, all the stealing. There's so much looting,
or whatever. Like they're just
yeah. So all of this is happening, and so Whole Foods, one of the main areas in San Francisco, it shut its doors. I can't remember which store it is. It's either Target or I think it was Target. Everything in Target is behind a glass or plastic or whatever. Like you need a key to get into any product in Target in San Francisco now.
Yeah.
And it's just like we kept wondering, why
is the world we're living in now?
Why is this happening? Why is all of this happening? Why are they allowing this to happen? And then on top of it, we have these all this weird stuff with the climate change agenda and all these different things. And I realized this is all connected.
Yeah.
The reason why is because they want more control. So it's like, oh, well, okay, because of like climate change, because of all this crime in the city, we'll just take over. We'll do this like massive underhaul of using different kind of clean energy. We'll make these 15-minute cities. Everything will then be because of the stop looting. Now you'll check in when you enter a grocery store, and they're already starting to do this in some places where you have to it's like an ID, like you scan your iPhone, it's like there's it has all your information on it. You scan it to get into the store, and then you got to scan it to leave, and it knows everything that you have.
Yeah,
and
this is frictionless shopping.
Yeah, and it makes me
how we get our rights taken away from us for sure.
This is why they're allowing it to happen. And now there's like 14 cities, including like LA, Miami, I think Chicago, and New York, maybe New York, and a couple other cities that all signed agreements saying by 2030 they want to like reduce meat, milk, and all these like different products like this in these cities to pave the way more for like a
bugs,
probably
plants, bugs,
probably, you know. So that I don't know. I hate to like. I'm not trying to be like a, you know, quote unquote.
No, this is actually the trends. Actually, you know, let's
really
be clear.
is.
You know, you're not saying something crazy like this is out in the open. This is public information that the World Economic Forum even is talking about on a daily basis, right?
Yes.
Or however often they have their, you know, conferences and stuff. So yeah, no, this is not crazy talk, what you're saying. Like, this is, you can easily find this information if you look. Yeah, and insects is the direction that it's all going right now. These like why would we want to eat trash? Why would we eat the things that eat our trash? That's
a really good question.
That is.
Yeah. I'm trying to dude, it's Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, LA, Miami, New Orleans, New York City, and San Francisco, Portland, of course. All signed agreements to combat climate change. So by 2030, they're reducing meat and dairy consumption to 0. I don't even know what that means. How can they even do that? They're going to limit clothing purchase to 3 times per year annually. Eliminate private ownership of vehicles. This is not a conspiracy. They actually, this is like an agreement thing.
Where is this?
This is this is like it's a WEF promoted treaty to ban meat, dairy, and private cars.
Yeah, but where is it being signed?
By their governors, I guess.
Okay, but governors of what state, what area? Or is this Europe? Is this America?
No. I'm saying that the cities that already signed it are Austin, Boston, Chicago, Houston, LA. Here, let me find it.
Houston signed this?
Houston signed it. I'm really shocked about that.
No, you shouldn't be that shocked. Houston is way more messed up than people think.
Ben, where are you reading this?
Here, let me pull it up. All right, let me double check on this, but I mean, everyone in a fact checked claim that banning meat and dairy. 14 U.S. cities signed WEF treaty to ban meat, dairy, private cars by 2030.
Are these just goals, though, or are they like edicts?
They might just be goals. That might be what people are.
They are. I think it's like shock. They're like these, they do way extreme goals, and then in 10 or 20 years, more of them, like a little bit more of them, get adopted in these different places, and then over time they're able to change things. It could take way longer than 2030.
So the whole initiative is called C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, and these cities are part of this group. So I think like what it's saying is that there's all, you know, that's kind of the extreme aspect. If you look at it like, oh no, this is like, you know, blah, 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 good for this and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, here's Bloomberg. Okay.
So somebody, actually, I want to just bring this up really quick. So in our Facebook chat, someone named Hannah Curtis. Hi, Hannah. How are you? Thanks for commenting over here. She said, do either of you know anything about what's at the root of them not wanting us to eat meat? Weren't Mithra worshippers vegetarian? So
that's a good question.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, actually. It's like what no one's really telling anyone is that like probably the most nutritious thing, bar none, for the human body is beef. And if the human body isn't getting enough nutrition, it screws a lot of things up. It's really hard to have children, for instance. There's like a plethora of things that can happen if the human body is not getting enough of the right nutrition. It's harder to produce testosterone. It's harder to produce estrogen. I'm not sure, so what is the reason? Like, is it climate change? Is it because of climate change? Like, really? I think if you dig into it yourself, you'll find that it's what the results are of not eating those things or not consuming those things are probably what's thereafter. Yeah. To say that in a very non-direct way, because I can't here. Yeah.
Well, it's a very staple food especially for Americans. I mean, it's like everyone has like Chinese food. It's amazing. It's like everyone has when you think of Italian, Chinese, Indian, like everyone has their own cuisine. Over here in America, it's like when you really think of it, it's steak and potatoes. It's like meat and potatoes. That's really, I feel like that's the thing that we have, and we do really, really well over here, is like how to make a steak well. And
yes, actually, I would say in terms of world cuisine, like what Americans have really like added into world cuisine, a lot of people might be like, hamburgers are awesome. It's true. Hamburgers are awesome. But if you come down here and you get some slow cooked smoked barbecue, it's the best thing. It's the best tasting thing nearly on the planet. It's so good.
That's true. Okay. Well, okay. So this 14 city thing, why don't I just say, because it looks like it's kind of on these sites. It hasn't been confirmed. A lot of people are talking about it. So I would say right now it's more of like a rumor more than anything else, because it doesn't look like it's an official thing. I thought it was more of like an official thing where these cities were kind of proud to sign this stuff, but it doesn't look like it. But I would still kind of keep an eye, especially on those 14 cities. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. But but they've been trying to attack meat, and actually Beyond Meat has been failing. It's like they're failing so bad that they are rethinking the structure of the company of Beyond Meat.
It's beyond me why it's failing.
There we go. All right, we're going to have to jump off here. We still have some things to talk about. We have Biden visiting Maui. We'll get into a little bit of that. We have our, meditation prayer that we do at the end of every Tuesday show. And we're going to get into some of your guys' questions as well. So we're going to leave Rumble, Facebook, Ganjing World, Twitter, YouTube, and head over to Rise TV. So join us for just $9.99 a month, and please support what we do. We have so much content for you to binge endlessly for days on end, really.
Weeks.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to play a trailer, and then we'll head over to Rise TV and talk a little bit more about the Maui Biden fires and Q&A.
When disease strikes humanity, when corruption is on the rise, when darkness descends, how can we find the light? Noble governors, honorable caretakers, destructive dictators. Each time a plague hit, the state of the people seemed to determine their fate. What if this were a pattern nobody has ever looked at before? Are people's illnesses tied to their spirits? Does chaos in society reflect chaos in the cosmos? This goes deeper than any history book's look at plagues has ever gone before. Plagued Part 2, Divine Retribution.
All right.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna get right into the Q&A here. Or we got to talk about a couple things, right?